give that a good start. And we should be good recording. Okay, so we've got Pam Santos. She is going to paint with us. If you haven't already grabbed a pencil, a cup of water, paper towels, as well as the foam board with the piece of paper attached to it, and your small paint kit, the 8-count watercolor, make sure to go grab those now because you will need them. We're gonna try and do a small Q&A session at the end with Pam. So think, if you have any questions for her, think of them. And while we're working, if you have any questions, feel free to type them right in the chat box. If you hover over your screen in the bottom, you'll see an icon that says chat, and it should bring up the group chat, and we will ask them to her, and hopefully everything will go great. This is our first time recording this, so please bear with us. And I think we're set up pretty good. Oh, I have one more person coming in right now. Let's see. All righty. Let me just make sure that they came. So, all right, they are here. So, as I said, just so you know, Christine, we are recording this. You can go back and look. If you have any questions during it, please go ahead and type them in the chat box, and we will ask Pam as we work. And I'm just gonna mute you now, so everybody's muted except for our artists. So,
right.
Yeah, so take it away, Pam.
All right, great. Thanks. Thank you very much. And this is my first time doing a Zoom watercolor class, so we're all kind of experimenting here. You guys, being in the high school or soon to be in the high school, probably have way more experience with the Zoom stuff than either Brandy or I or Kathy have. So you know what to do. I also have to say that I can't see who's on there. So by chance, I might know some of you because I have kids in the high school too, or maybe I've painted with you. So anyhow, it's good to see you, even though I don't quite know who's out there, and I'm glad you're painting with me again, if you painted with me before. All right, so since it's so tricky, usually when I paint or teach a watercolor class, I walk around the room a lot, and I check on what people are doing and visiting. So I'm not able to do that this time because you guys are all in your own homes. So we're just gonna try to do it a different way, and I'm gonna share with you the real basics of kind of getting started with the watercolor, which is something that's so easy and something that you can do when you're, stuck at home, which we all have been. So Brandy really went over the kind of things you need to do to what you need to have in front of you. I'm just going to do it one more time just to make sure we're all set before we get started. I believe everybody got a set of paints, and these are praying sets, and they're a really good beginner paint to start from. They're what I started learning from, and for years I just painted with these. So they're a great set of paints. They're true colors. The one thing I would suggest, there's the color black here, just to take that puppy out. Don't even use it, because whenever you're painting with watercolors, black just overtakes the painting. And even if you think you're gonna want to have something that's colored black, I just suggest take it right out. So save it for later. Don't even use that today. You're also gonna notice we don't have the color white in here. And those of you who have never painted with watercolors before, when we want something to be the color white or really bright on our watercolor painting, we just don't paint that piece because we have a white piece of paper. So there is no white and there is no black. So that's our beginning part, all right? So you're gonna want to have your brush and a big glass of water, paper towel, your board that Brandy has taped right on there. And actually, you know what, if you have an extra sheet of paper, just regular, can be computer paper or whatever, if you've got your art pack right there, that's going to be a handy thing to have. And then also another piece of watercolor paper, if you've got that there. So we are going to get started. It's tricky to know, since we're not, next to each other, what we're going to be painting. And I'm like, what should I paint? I thought I need to pick, for this lesson, being so far away from each other, pick something that we're going to do more painting than drawing, because drawing is a big part of creating art, and we just don't have enough time to really get into the drawing part. So I thought one thing that we see every day, and we're so blessed here in South County, are beautiful skies and beautiful beaches. And so that's what I thought. We'll do some beach scenes. So what I did is a lot of my paintings I'll paint from photographs, and I can get photographs from the internet or photographs that I take myself. And this is what I chose. I chose these two for today. I don't know if you can see it, actually, but I hold it like it. So it's a golden colored sunset, and or sunrise, I'm not even sure. And then a similar one, but it's in cool colors. So this is obviously in warm colors, and this one's in cool colors. I chose these because we can take a look at the values. The darks and the lights are really important. And we're going to learn about how the paint moves on wet paper versus dry paper. So that's what we're going to learn today, the wet and the dry. So, alrighty. So let's see. We've got our supplies. I think our first thing we're going to do is just take a look at how the paint moves, how watercolor paint moves on wet and dry paper. I'm going to move this out of the way. One of the first things I'm going to do, I'm going to open up my set, and I'm going to put a drop of water in each one of these colors, just like that. Just drop it. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow the paint to get a little moist. And when we're ready to use it, it'll be all wet and ready to go. All right. So this is just a little bit of a experiment. Let's call it an experiment. So I've got a piece of watercolor paper here, and I folded it in half. I want to take a look at how the paint moves around on a dry piece of paper versus a wet piece of paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one half of this, and I'm going to get it real wet. You're welcome to do this too if you've got your supplies out, and just get one side really wet. The watercolor paper is kind of like a sponge. It'll soak up water. It's different from like computer paper or other types of painting paper. And you can get very fancy watercolor paper or relatively inexpensive watercolor paper. It's all pretty good. The one thing I don't suggest is, and sorry job lot, but is to not get the watercolor paper at job lot. It can be, you'll be painting and all of a sudden, I've had that experience of there'll be a spot in there that doesn't take the paint, doesn't take the pigment. And that can be very frustrating. If you're going along painting, you're doing a beautiful job, and all of a sudden, shoot, that's not working. So it's okay to go cheap, but don't go to job lot for your watercolor paper. The stuff that you got in your packet, this.
Should we take any piece of paper? Should we take any piece of paper?
Any piece of paper? You got one of these in your pack? So use one of these, all right? And just fold that thing in half. This is great watercolor paper to learn on. And
Oh, actually, I don't have that book.
You don't have that?
No, I don't have the book. I have many sheets of paper.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you don't have the book, then it's best to use what you have. But the paint might work differently. It might travel around your paper differently.
No, actually, I have more just sheets of paper inside the pack.
Okay, well, probably just if you don't have the paper if you don't have this blue stuff, then use what you've got.
Okay.
Right. So now I've got this side really wet. One side's really wet, one side's totally dry. All right, so I'm gonna paint. Let's try the dry side. So when you use a dry paper and dryish paint, not super dry because you wouldn't be able to paint with it, you're going to have the most control over that paint. You're going to have the most control over where it goes. So let's try something Let's see, I'm gonna paint, let's say I'd like to do a tree, all right? How about like a pine tree, all right? So I'm gonna do like this. I'm gonna have the trunk go up this way and like this. It's gonna start looking like a pine tree. I'm gonna get some more of that. But there's a shape there that it looks familiar, and I want that shape. I want you guys to recognize that that's a pine tree. See, it's not perfect because painting's not perfect, but pretty much anybody could tell that that's a pine tree, right? And so I might put something like that, and maybe I want to add some more colors in there and have fun. And I want the colors to be, you know, to stay put. I don't want them traveling around everywhere. Okay. So there's my pine tree, and I'm happy with that pine tree. Looks like a pine tree. All right. So that paint was a little bit wet, not super wet, just a little bit wet, but the paper was very dry. So I had a lot of control over where that paint went. Now, if I want to try that same thing down here on the wet side, I'm going to get this really wet again. I'm going to use the same colors. I'm going to make that pine tree again. Let's see what's going to happen. Same thing. Boom. Can you guys see that? All right. Now,
Do we do this too?
you can. I'm going to give you guys time to do this in a little bit. Right now, we're just going to take a look at this. So, if I was expecting to have a lot of control over this, but look what happened. I might be like, oh man, I am a lousy artist. I was not anticipating that. That does not look like a tree. That looks like a ghost or something. I don't know what that is, but it does not look like what I thought it would be. And a lot of people, when they're starting out painting for the first time, might have something like this happen and they get really discouraged. And I really, no need to get discouraged ever for painting, because anything can be turned around and it's all what you expect is going to happen. So sometimes when you're painting, you really want that kind of, you know, flowy look, like the fog or whatever. And sometimes you like it like this, where that looks like a tree. And most paintings have a little bit of both in them. All right, most paintings have times when you paint really wet and times that you paint really dry. And I brought a couple of my paintings just to show you, like there might be different ones. So this is a picture of my dog Bear, and you can see that parts of this painting, I just mixed colors, and you can tell that was really wet, probably there. But parts of this painting, I needed to wait for it to be dry. Like that eye, I wanted that eye to be just right. And that nostril, I just wanted it to be just right. So part of the painting was painted while it was wet, and then I let it dry. And then I went over it again with a dry paper and dry paint. So that's kind of the story about the wet and the dry. I'll show you some more examples. You can see here, this was probably painted when it's wet. The chicken, you can see a lot of this was wet when I painted it, but once again, when I went to the eye or the beak or the wattle, I think that's called, I needed to make sure that I had control over the paint. All right, same with this. A lot of it is wet, but when I wanted to do the shapes of people, I needed to make sure I had control. And once again, you can tell this was wet, but when I wanted to get the details, I needed to have control and it needed to be dry. So let's give you guys a chance. Take your piece of paper and fold it in half, get one side really wet, and then the other side dry. And just take a little moment to try a tree or any kind of shape that you want and see how that goes. And then try it when it's really wet. I'm going to give you guys like 2 minutes because I can't see you and I'm not sure how it's going. If you guys have any questions about this process, type it in and I will be able to get that, and Kathy will tell me, and I can answer your questions. Then we're going to go on to the next step. Ooh, gosh. All right. Glass of water.
No chats yet.
Okay, so there seems to be no questions, so I'm going to assume it's all good. Everybody's had a chance to see what it feels like when the paint goes out of control and flows around. And when it's flowy like that, that's a great time to mix the colors right on the paper. Instead of doing a blue and a yellow, mixing it to make a green, you could put the blue and the yellow right on the paper. And when paper's really wet, the colors will mix themselves, and that can be really exciting to see, and it can look quite beautiful. Alrighty, so let's see. What we're going to do next is take a look at the values. I know this is a lot of stuff before we're actually going to painting. We're going to take a look at the value of our painting. So I'm going to do both of these as an exercise. So the values are what is really dark and what is really light and what is in between. And when I think about this, I squint. Like I'll squint and I'll look at an image, and I'll squint and I'll think, what is the very, very brightest thing in there? And in this one, it's obvious, you know, it's the sun and the reflection. And if you look really carefully, right along the waves, there's a glint of the sun going on there. I'm not sure how well you can see that, and if I bring it up close, it gets too dark.
You can see.
Can you see that okay?
Yeah.
All right. So so this is the brightest, and this is also bright, and then there's like a glint on the waves, and there's some kind of dark spots up there. Let's check out the cooler image. So you can see there's light coming through the clouds, and also a little reflection here. And then this, where the surf is, that's kind of light. And it's light behind here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look. I'm going to start with this one. And I'm going to just take a regular sheet of paper like this. And I'm going to do a value sketch. So it's going to look like scribbling, but it's helping me pay attention to what are the dark parts and where are the light parts. So what I'm going to do, it's just going to take like lickety split. I'm just going to draw. Can you see this? Can you see this okay?
Yep, that's fine.
Yep. There's the horizon. I'm kind of looking at the shape, goes up like that. And that's kind of where the surf is. There's a piece right here that is very bright, and then the clouds. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scribble. It looks like scribble on this, but the dark parts are kind of on the top here. There's some dark clouds. I don't know if it's going to storm or what the story is there. And then when I'm looking at this, wow, that horizon is very, very dark. I would say that horizon is the darkest piece. So I'm going to scribble that right in here. See, I'm not being fancy at all about what I'm drawing. And then next, right here is pretty dark too. So where the shore is very dark. And once again, this is just going to kind of guide me and help me remember what the values are in this painting. The darks and the lights, that's what I mean by the values. Kind of little. Totally looks like a scribble. Going around a little bit. So it totally looks like a scribble, but see how that helps me with the darks and the lights. And that's a value sketch. And if you were doing a painting that you're going to give to your mom or your grandma or something like that, you would take a very, very long time and make sure you get it right. Some people will actually do a whole painting with just one color. And you paint that, they call it a monochromatic painting. I always have a hard time saying that word. So you just use one color and that helps you focus on the darks and lights. But when you're painting with watercolor paints, you really need to focus on that. So you can take a moment, and I know it's tricky because you don't have this right in front of you, but you could take a moment and sketch that out. I'm going to put that up close to you guys. You can see it well. Can you see it?
Yep. Very well.
It's really just some very basic shapes. All right. Pay attention to what's the darkest of the darks right there on the horizon and on the beach, and what's the medium colors kind of in the sky, and the lighter colors are like the surf and the clouds in the distance, and then there's the sun and a reflection peeking through. Okay, so we're going to hang on to our value sketch and refer to that. And what I'm going to do now is just do a real light line drawing on my board. So this is us getting into the nitty-gritty, the fun part, the painting. All right, so I'm going to just do a quick line sketch. I'm going to barely use my pencil because I'm going to be painting over it, and I don't want the pencil to be the focus. So this is as light as could be, and I'm just doing a very light. And when I'm doing this, I'm kind of just paying attention to the lines. And honestly, I don't know if you can even see that. It's so light. Probably can't even see it. Just the lines are super light, a little bit of pencil.
Run your finger over the lines.
There's the horizon. There's the shore right here. Very, very light. Yeah. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I want to pay attention. What is the very lightest part? When we paint with watercolor, we always go, you can always break the rules, but the rule that I generally go for is lightest to darkest. So I'm going to look and see what's the lightest in here. And I think what the lightest is these little pieces that are shining through. They kind of like, they look yellow or golden. So I'm going to start mixing some colors up here. And I'm going to just plop them down in there. You know what I'm going to do first, actually? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this spot wet and the top wet, just like we did when we were doing our exercise. So watch this. I'm going to get the sky wet because I think I would like my painting to have the sky look like it's flowing. I don't need a lot of control over what I'm painting because it's the sky and there's clouds and they kind of floof all over the place. And I'm also going to do this down here where the surf is. Okay. So here I go. I'm going to take a little bit of yellow. You can use this top thing to mix your colors in, or you could use a plate, or you can use a palette, however professional you want to feel. But this top thing is just fine. And I'm going to just put a little there, and a little of this here. All right, maybe a little bit over here. So can you see I put that color in? I don't have a lot of control. It went flying all over the place. And when the paper's really wet, I like to keep my board flat. If I picked it up, I might get a big old drip going down there. So now I'm going to get some blue. Let's see. If you want to make a gray, you want to put in like the opposite color. So you got blue and orange. That's going to give you kind of a bluish gray. Let's see how that's going to look here.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, do we have to start drawing the light to dark?
Well, you can You can go at whatever pace you want to do that.
So do we have to actually draw something, or do we just draw colors from light to dark?
So what I do is, because there's really not too much to draw on this, I just draw a line to help me remember where the horizon is, and draw a little line to help me remember where the surf is, all right? That part right there. I'm not going to draw all these clouds. I'm going to let the paint make the clouds. Because if you draw all those clouds, for one, we probably won't have time for that. And for two, part of the beauty of painting is just letting loose of control. So I would suggest for this class, just for now, is just draw those lines, the horizon and where the surf is. Very few lines. And then we're going, yep, from light to dark. And I'll show you how we're going to do that. I'm just going to continue on here and just get this, just have a little fun with this. And I'm gonna also put the paint in down here where the surf is. It's gonna look different because the only thing you can see right now are the light pieces. And the painting will come together when we add the dark pieces. All right. There's a friendly officer going by to interrupting our class. Okay, so this is what I have when I'm doing just the light part first. All right. So go ahead, if you haven't already done that, go ahead and do this. Get the light part on there. And you can also, if you see other colors in there and you'd like to add those other colors, you can do that now. You can be creative. You can do whatever you want. It doesn't, the painting, any painting you do does not have to look like any particular photograph or anything, because you have complete artistic license.
Should they want to know if you can zoom in on your painting? So maybe hold it up to the.
Can you see that okay? And I'm gonna just put that. Oops. Yeah. Can you see that all right? Is that good? So you can see that I've done the light pieces there. And I could, like I was saying, you could add different colors too. I can do like this, if I want to have some more fun with it. Add purples. So what we're going to be doing is, like I said, starting out light and then getting things darker and darker. Now, if I had all the time in the world, what I would do is I would take this wet piece and I would go put it out in the sunshine, and I would wait for half an hour and I'd come back and work on it again. But we don't have all the time in the world. But this is just food for thought when you guys are doing this at home. You can also, if it's a rainy day, get a hair dryer and blow dry it. I've done that before too. But what I'm going to do for this lesson is I actually have a dry piece. So I did this morning and it's dry. So I'm going to, after it's dry, I'm going to be adding some of the darker pieces. So this is dry because I did it earlier. But now I'm going to add some of the darker clouds and some darker pieces inside the waves, the surf there. All right?
Another question.
Sure.
Oh, she said thank you.
Oh, sure.
There is another question.
Yep.
Just if you were doing a drawing like of a dog,
Yep.
when would you put the pencil part in for the drawing, or for drawing? Like a
Okay.
specific thing?
So the question was, so everybody can hear it, is if I was doing like for my dog picture, how much, I think the question is how much drawing do you do and how much do you just do the painting? And so for example, this one, I can't see if you can.
They can see it.
Can you see it? Okay, so I would, when I did this, I sketched out the pieces that are most important. Like the nose was really important to get that right. Otherwise, it wouldn't look like my dog. And the eyes. And then just generally, was paying attention to what is dark and what is light. I did a value sketch of it because if you just look at it, it's just brown fur. It's kind of hard to decide. But if you squint and you try not to think dog, you try to think darks and lights, that helped me. So really the only drawing I did here was this, and then I paid attention to where the super darks are. And when I put the darks and the lights together, of course I started with the lightest over here, and then I added the darks. Pretty soon it said, oh, that's a dog. So, and it had volume, and it looked like fur and all that, but that's just simply looking at the shapes and looking at the darks and the lights. So hope that answers that. So back to the ocean. I'm going to add now these darker clouds. And as far as mixing colors, just have fun with it. And sometimes what I do is I'll use this piece of paper that we were doing for an experiment, flip it over, and you can try your colors on the back of it and just see like, oh, is that kind of what I want? Would I like that to be a little more purple? So can you see that? Okay, yeah. So this is, I think I like it even darker than that. So I'm going to take the blue, mix it in there real good. And I think I'm going to put some red, mix it in real good. Ooh, that's a nice dark. So look at that. I think that's going to be great for my dark clouds. So I'm going to wet the paper again because I would like the clouds to kind of have that cloud look. I'm going to get it wet. And this is kind of fun because you honestly, you just don't know exactly what it's going to do. And that's the part of painting that I really enjoy. Okay, so that is really, really wet. I'm going to go for this dark purple. That's neat. It's not as dark as I like it. And the reason it's not as dark as I like it is because I really put a lot of water on there. Now, can you see what that's doing? Can you see that very well? It's really kind of flowing. If I tip it up, it's going to drip.
You want me to hold this over a little bit?
Ooh, that's good. So I'm going to, once again, go like that. Make some big old dark clouds. Yeah. So you see what I'm trying to get that kind of a look. It doesn't have to look exact, and often you can get it looking even more cool than what the photograph is. So with different types of how the paints go in. All right. Okay. All right, so I'm going to put this flat for a second. And you guys can try. Go ahead and get it nice and dark. Get some dark clouds. Make it look ominous. Mix things up. Have fun with just experimenting with the colors.
20 minutes left.
Okay. All right. I really wish I could see your paintings. I would love to see what you guys are doing, but this is how this is looking now. And because it's so wet, sometimes I'll want to blot my brush here and maybe mop up some of these little drips that are going down. You can, if you really have a bad drip, just take the corner, let me find one. Take the corner here and mop it up. If you put this right on your paper, it's going to mop it up so well. See, it's going to have like a lighter spot, which if that's what you're shooting for, then that's a good thing. But if not, all right. So let's see, what needs to get darker? I would say up here needs to get darker. Now this is the very darkest part, but I'm going to work on this just a little bit more. get this nice and dark, and I think I'm gonna put a little purple. And I might even just tap the tiniest brown just to get it darker. And I think I'm gonna use a tiny bit of red and then go in for some blue. And once again, there's no magic recipe or one that I can tell you about this. It's just kind of have fun with it. I would like this to get darker on the top. All right, I'm going to stick with that. That's going to be my dark cloud on the top. I'm going to let that dry a bit. It looks very sloppy and messy. Oopsie, there you go. That's nature for you, though. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to work on, and this is going to be fun, is right here, the horizon. It's really, really, really dark as you can be. This is one of those times when you might be tempted to go and use this. Please don't use your black. Put it down, don't touch the black. But you can make a really dark combination of colors. Let's see what we could do with that. We could add some more blue. Also remember that if you don't add water, it's going to be more intense. The color is going to be more intense. That little green. And purple's really dark. Let's see how dark we can get it. Whoa. Now, that almost looks black, I would say. So I want to make a nice straight line where that horizon is. If I make a mistake, it's not a big deal. Just do the best you can. There you go. So that's going to be my horizon. The horizon is the darkest, right where it touches the sky. And then it seems to get a little less dark as it goes down. So as I paint this part, I'm going to use just a tiny bit more water than what I used there. Let's see if we can make that work. Just a tiny bit more water, and that's going to make the color less intense. I'm just going to keep going along, back and forth. Add a little bit more blue in there. Okay, so see, I've got a horizon, and the horizon's the darkest right at the top, and then it gets lighter as it gets closer to the shore. All right. Now, let's take a look. What's another really dark part of this photograph? I would say it's the sand. The sand is pretty dark, almost as dark as the water. So let's do that one now. We'll do the sand. And I'm going to use pretty much the same color, but I think I'm going to add a little more brown and maybe a touch of orange too. It's really dark, but it's dark sand. So let's see. And what I'm going to do is follow it around, kind of like the way that the surf has kind of fingers that reach out. I'm going to follow around the back. Around. And I'm going to do a similar thing. It seems like the sand is the darkest where the water is touching it, and then it lightens up as it goes out towards the shore more. So I'm going to, and you can even, if you look closely, you can even see a little bit of rocks. And if you wanted to put the rocks in there, you can. If you wanted to ignore the rocks, you can do that too. Okay. Can you see that? I'm a little worried about lifting it up.
Hold it, let's move it down.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so can you see
Down a little more.
the darks and the lights? Can you see that where the water hits the ocean? And so I think we've got the basic values all set. And what we can do now is add little bits of dark where we want it even darker. All right? So that's what I'm going to do. Any questions up to this point?
No.
No? Okay. I'm just going to add a little bit of darker as we go along with less water. Let's see. This is really dark. I'm going to just make a line up here again. Get that nice and dark. The more, when you add your darks to your painting, it's going to make the lights seem lighter. I think most people that do watercolor painting are a little nervous about adding the darks to their painting. I've painted with kids and with adults and with people who are very comfortable painting and people who are brand new at painting, and it seems that adding the darks to your painting always makes people nervous. So don't be afraid of the dark. Add those darks and it'll really make your painting pop out. I'm going to get this just a little more dark too. I'm going to add some kind of waves, these little lines. And I think I'll do the same right over here too. Once again, it's really strange to teach a class when I can't see what you guys are doing, but I hope you guys just reach out with a question if you have a question. Now I think I'm going to just add a little bit more of those dark clouds up on top. Kind of like a storm. All right, there's a couple, I'm going to add, see these little puffy clouds here? Right on the bottom. I think I'm going to add some darkness and try to get some of those little puffy clouds too. Not too wet. The thing that I love most about painting is it helps you see things. So here I am painting this picture of the sky looking out over the beach. And I've done paintings like this before, and what is really great about it is it just helps you observe nature better. So next time I'm down at the beach and it's around, you know, nighttime or whatever, I'm going to be looking for what are those clouds doing? And as my own kids hear me say all the time is, how would you paint that? Like, look at that sky, look at that sunset. How would you paint that? What would you do first? Where's the lightest part in that sky? And it just helps you see things just in your own backyard. And we live in such a beautiful, beautiful part of the country. We really are lucky to have so many beautiful things right here in our own yard. I'm just putting in a little bit of waves because I see some kind of dark. And here's a little funny line here. I'm just going to moisten that up a bit. So I got a little drip. I'm going to turn it into a line. Okay. Oops. So that is the quick version of looking out at the ocean. All right. So I did bring another one. I'm not going to do this other one, but similar to this, if you were going to do more of a warm version, you're going to do the exact same thing. You look for the brightest. This is also bright. There's little reflections, the sun glinting off things, and the medium. You look for the medium, and then the darkest. And I would say in this, the darkest is this wave crashing right there and down below. So it's a very similar thing to what we did with the darker one. All right. So what I'm going to do is, when I'm all done with the painting, I peel this off. All right. When I peel it off, I peel it at an angle. So don't pull it straight down because it'll rip your paper, but peel it at an angle. When you use this tape, it gives you a nice clean line like that. And when you put it on an easel, it looks like an actual painting. Can you make that go up a little bit more?
Oh,
There you go.
sorry.
That's okay. Yeah. So there you go. You've got a painting. All right. Do you guys have any questions? And if you don't, I can just show you what I might do on the light color ones.
Yeah, it looks like we probably have like 10 more minutes or so.
Yep. Yep.
And for all of you guys who are here still, we have a drawing at the end for additional art supplies. So don't disappear when Pam's done.
Don't disappear.
Yes. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask them. You can type them in the box and we'll ask them and she'll show you a little bit more.
And if you have no questions, I'm going to go ahead and work on this one then, which is very similar to the one we just did. Same techniques. All right. No questions? I'm just going to go on then. So basically, I wetted this down and I did the wet part. So I want, once again, the sky to be a little flowy like clouds are. And I want to remember to keep this part bright. All right. So I'm going to go in for the medium color. And on this image, I would say, actually, I think, ooh, it's tricky. I think I'm going to go for the water first, the medium part of the water. So let's see. I'm going to use, I don't want it to be as dark as that. I'm not going to use those cool colors because this is a much warmer image. So let's see. I think I'm going to, and you can use the paint. Any paint you have left over from something you were painting, you can just mix it up and use it again. I'm gonna, let's see. Tricky. All right, so I'm using a lot of orange and blue, and I'm going to put a touch of purple in there. I think that's what I'm going to go for. I'm going to try out my color here. That's pretty good. And I'm going to do that horizon line there. Maybe a nice straight horizon line right across. And I'm gonna put the color I chose. Across. So this is so similar to what we did with the other one. I'm just going to bring it down. Remember how the darkest was right on there, on where the horizon was, and it seemed to get a little bit lighter. It should go down. So I'm adding a little bit more water as I get closer. And I'm going to mix in a little bit of blue, because I kind of see a little blue in there. Another little hint is when you're painting water and a sky or a sunset. So whatever color is up in the sky, you're going to see it reflected in the water. So with this one, you can see it's a lot of cool colors, and the yellow, which is the sun coming through the sky, and a little bit of these kind of salmon colors. You're going to see that reflected in the water and down here. Same with this. So if you have a day that has like this, like an ominous green sky, like a sky that is going to have a big storm, that's the color you're going to also see in the water. If you've got a day that is just gorgeous and sunny, and it's yellow and beautiful, you're going to see that in the water too. If it's a day that is so bright you need sunglasses, the water is also going to be bright. And sometimes that's when you see, like, it almost looks like it's glittering at you or sparkling at you. So whatever, if you're doing a water scene, whatever's up in the sky, you're going to see that down in the water too. So, and that goes to this. So the water here is, I made like kind of a brownish one, but also inside there's little flecks of gold and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and use some yellow, and orange, and I'm going to put a little bit of that in there as well. Even if you don't notice it at first, it's always good to add to it. It's going to make your painting more interesting. There you go. So you wouldn't even notice really that the yellow is in there, but I put a little bit in there because I know that it's in the sky. And on this, there's that really dark wave. Let me go for that really dark wave right there. Okay, so I put a nice dark line in there. Waves are tricky to paint. And once again, because they happen so fast, it's a moment in time. And I'm always impressed, like to paint a wave, you've got to, if you're looking at a photograph, you think about painters that painted before photography was invented. How did they get those waves going? I mean, because it's simply a moment in time. So I'm always very impressed that they were able to do that. Here's another dark thing that's going out this way. I think it's another kind of piece of wave. And because that's so dark, it makes me realize that I need to get my horizon a little bit more dark too. So see how this is going? I'm paying attention to what's dark and what's light. And just by making that wave, the darkness, it's slowly turning into a wave. Add some more color behind here. If I could play around with this more, I would even have that be more of a wave. But it's starting to look like a wave. And we're going to pay attention to the darks and lights. I think I'm just going to do a little bit of the darker clouds in the sky. And then I just would like to stop for some questions or just give you my enthusiastic spiel about painting, and that you guys have the opportunity to go out and paint anytime. There's Bell Poland. So I'm making some darker clouds up here. So I'm not finished at all, but you can see how it's going along. When I add the darker clouds up here, it's going to make the whole picture more interesting. So it's such a process. Starting with the lights, getting darker and darker, and it's going to pull your painting together when you get all the darks down. Are there any questions that you guys have about any of this? Process, the paints.
I have one for you, Pam.
Sure.
Could you tell them how you got into teaching watercolor painting?
Sure. Yeah. So I never took painting in in college or anything. I'm not trained as an artist. I just started. I really thought watercolors were beautiful, and I thought the process was nice. And so I just started taking classes like at the Guild and stuff, and just to learn from different people. And I enjoyed it so much. I started, how I started teaching was teaching my own kids. And so I have 5 kids, and we would go on vacations to New Hampshire or wherever, and I would pick up postcards, and I would bring these boards already taped and ready to go. And as a family, we'd sit down and we would paint the postcards, and they came out beautifully, and everybody really enjoyed it. It's a fun thing to do with your family. And from there, I started teaching Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts. I was teaching after-school programs at Wakefield School, and just I enjoyed it so much, and people seemed to enjoy my classes. So then I started teaching at home and teaching at the Art Association. And I don't know which teenagers are back there, but maybe some of you guys have taken my classes. I don't know. So that's kind of how I got into it. And the part, I mean, honestly, I don't, at the end, when it's all done, I think everybody, has done it. No matter what your painting looks like, as long as you enjoyed the process, as long as it was fun, as long as it helped you to, at the end of the day, after your class is done, you go outside, and if you spent the whole class learning how to paint a tree, you go outside and you're like, oh my gosh, I never noticed that tree before. That tree is so beautiful, because you spent time paying attention to what a tree looks like. That could be the same thing with a dog or a house or the beach and the sky. The more you paint, the more you're paying attention, and we should all be paying attention because, we're just, life is pretty beautiful, and it's nice to open your eyes and see it all around you. So that's kind of my philosophy. And my philosophy also is there are no mistakes. There are no mistakes in your painting. You might have something you need to work on or change how you approached it, but yeah, it's just fun. It's a good process. It's relaxing, it's cheap, it's not expensive. You can just paint and put these things away, because unlike some other kinds of artwork that you have to have out for a long time, or they may be smelly, or they stain, these pretty much don't stain. Get them on your clothes, can pretty much wash out. It's really fun to do. And it's fun to do with your brothers and your sisters. It's fun to do with people, with your grandma and stuff. It's just I don't know. It's a great activity to do.
Yeah.
Go paint.
Are there any other questions for Pam right now?
I have a question.
Oh,
They don't.
Kathy has a question.
how do we make that wave actually look like the wave? You know, what's the next step on that wave?
On this, the next step, it's always paying attention to darks and lights for me. So my next step would be, as I'm looking at it, really squinty and see what do I need to put in. So what I would do next is I'm noticing the light is only right here. And on mine, I've got the light going all the way down. So I would fix that. And then the way a wave works is it's curling over. So this part is really shaded. And so to get this a little bit darker in there, and then also to add this stuff here. So this just looks like kind of a crocodile or something. So I would need to pay attention to what's underneath here. Waves are tricky. Yeah. Waves, because we all know what they look like. You see them every day if you're driving, you know, down there, Advanced or whatever. And really all they are shapes. All they are is this shape and this color and this value next to this one. But we know they come in like this and surfers go on them and all that. But when you're painting them, it really is just paying attention to what shape is next to another shape. Waves are really hard to do. But you can try them. Any other questions? Randy, thank you for doing this. This is great.
Thank you.
So this is watercolor. What are the other art lessons that folks are going to do?
So next week we have do-it-yourself art journals with paint and print making, I believe. So that'll be fun. And then the week after that is drawing.
Nice.
And like I said, when you come to the Zoom sessions, you're actually entered to win a raffle. And I've been paying attention, and I can see names here, and I know that Michael has 2 people watching, and I'm guessing Katie and Veronica are both there. But if there's anybody else that has multiple people watching, if you can just unmute yourself and let me know, because I made up a bunch of tags with people's names on it, and I want to be able to draw out a winner here. So if there are more than one of you watching other than Katie and Michael, or Katie and Veronica, and I know there were 2 people watching Michael. Anybody else? You just unmute yourself and tell me. I see no one. Okay, so I have everybody's names here. I am going to shuffle them up and not look. And you're winning a how to do watercolor book that shows different techniques. Nice. And a set of 18 watercolors, so a larger set than what you have. And my winner is Sophie. So there we go. I mean, it doesn't look like it says Sophie because it's backwards, but it really does. So you can pick that up. I'll email you, and you can pick that up during our curbside hours. So congratulations. And next week, I hope I'll send out the link a day ahead again, and hopefully you all can join us. And next week, again, we have prizes and art instruction and all kinds of fun stuff. So thank you so much to the Art Association and to Kathy and Pam, and I think Jen is there filming maybe. But yes, so thank you guys, and I hope to see everybody again. Yeah, any last comments, Kathy or Pam?
I just want to say, well, I can't say
back there.
You gotta mute yourself, I think. No, thank you very much for doing this.